Ladies and gentlemen, friends, colleagues and listeners, here we are, another podcast. And this particular session, we've got an old friend and a colleague and a great servant of the industry. And the person I'm talking about, Stewart Angus. Stewart, lovely to have you on board again.
Hi, Chris. Nice to see you.
Yeah, really appreciate it. Firstly, thanks very much for being on the show before. It received great interest, lots of viewers, and lots of common sense as always from you. But this is a lovely opportunity for us now to just have another one as you're leaving Dnata. So from the Emirates and Dnata family after 25 years, big question, first question, why are you leaving?
Yeah, that's what everyone's asked me, actually. It's quite simple. My family moved back to Scotland 2 years ago, and it seemed a good idea at the time that we could travel, catch up regularly. In fact, I joke with my wife, I'd see her about the same amount as I would anyway with all the travel I was doing. But of course, COVID and the pandemic has just made that it's been really challenging. I'm going back to Scotland next week. I won't see my family for 5 months. That's the second time that's happened. And I've got to the point where I've got to put my family first.
Good man.
And I've kind of worked, I've put work first for 25 years. And I've got to put my family first now. Simple as that.
Yep. No, you're right. It's I was talking to somebody yesterday, and they were saying about the difficulties they've had over the last 12 to 14 months with their business and working extra hours and trying to put extra effort into it. And then he said, all of a sudden something happens and it makes you realize, what you've done, and you have to give yourself a little bit of a boost, and especially those that you love and that you haven't been with for a long time. So I think a lot of people are reassessing what they're doing, Stewart. So, fair play to you.
Yeah, I think you're right. You're hearing a lot of that anecdotally, aren't you? A lot of people reflecting on their life. And actually, a lot of it, I think just a lot of people are saying, realizing how important their families are. And I'm fortunate. I'm in a position where I can make that call so I'm really looking forward to getting back to Scotland, back into the rain.
Yeah. It'd be a big contrast for you, wouldn't it, eh?
Yeah, I think it's 42 degrees here in Dubai today.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I always used to joke with some of the friends I've got up there that, when I'd see them and they were white, that was a tan, because normally they're blue. It's so cold up there.
That's true, yeah.
A bit of a leg pull. But right, so now we know why you're going, and fair play to you. That's a great reason. Now, looking back, so 25 years, so the first 7 or 8 years with Emirates, and then moving over to Dnata. So reflecting back, I mean, what a great period you've had over there. I mean, not just the way Dubai and the Middle East has changed, but the way the industry's changed, and then the way Dnata, has grown through the years. It's been an incredible journey, huh?
Yeah, I've been really lucky, because it's been a great time to be in the industry, and it's been a phenomenal to be part of the story of what's happened to Dubai in those 25 years, and also to be part of the Dnata story as well. Because I joined Dnata when it made its first investment out of Dubai, in effect, and kind of overseen that growth since then. So that's been a heck of a story.
So when you were with Emirates, so let's just go back to those early years.
Yeah.
So when you were at Emirates, what were you doing then? What were you doing back then?
Well, I joined Emirates in finance because I was in finance with British Airways.
Yeah.
And I wanted to work. It sounds funny now, but at the time I wanted to work for a smaller company where I would feel I'm adding more value rather than being a wheel in the cog. Emirates had 16 aircraft then.
Yeah, so from 16 aircraft to where it is now, I mean, it's a huge leap, Stewart. But going back then, even working and making a big impact in a carrier, it was a big step to move from a carrier to a handling agent. So what was the catalyst that made you want to do that?
It was kind of quite a natural move, because I'd moved from finance into procurement. So I was negotiating ground handling contracts and other contracts on behalf of the airline. Okay. And so it was really a move from, I think it was gamekeeper to poacher, or the other way around. I'm not quite sure which, but it was certainly to move from one side of the table actually kind of seemed quite a natural move. And having gone, I kind of really, it took a couple of years to get used to, but I've actually really enjoyed it on the other side of the table.
Oh, clearly. I mean, you've had an incredible career. Now, you mentioned there about handling contracts. I mean, look at the way the handling contracts have changed over that period of time as well. From, just being a relatively standard exercise with an organisation, that was receiving outsourced services. But I mean, you look at it now, and the craziness, I think, in some cases, of the extended SLAs and the complexities that people have brought to it, even though they can't even measure it on both sides.
Yeah, and I think that complexity kind of looks really good in theory.
Yes.
But in reality, however many times have you ever looked at that contract? And I think what I'd rather focus on is I see the relationship has changed really over the last 5 years from much more of a transactional relationship.
Yeah.
The handler, you pay the handler to deliver the service and sign the contract and go away. And what you're seeing now is much more partnership arrangements between airlines and handlers. I think a lot of airlines have twigged onto the fact that if we actually help the handler and work collaboratively with them, we're actually going to get better service.
Yep.
And I can see that from our side of the table. There are airlines we're able to give better service to because they make it easier for us. And the way that the airline will, for example, the way the airline treats the ground handler's staff actually has such a big impact on service.
Yeah, and I mean, if you stand back and look at it, I mean, it's obvious, isn't it? If you make it as simple as possible, so people understand what's expected of them, and you also treat them with a certain respect and a certain awareness that they are part of you or part of your organisation, and that's what the customer is going to experience. It's totally different than, do this, and do 100 of this and 50 of that, and we want this, and there'll be penalties here, there, and everywhere. I mean, that's a crazy way to work.
Yeah, and when you say it on a human level, that's really obvious, isn't it, Chris?
Yeah.
But it doesn't always work like that in reality.
Yeah.
And the real test of a handling agent is on a Saturday night, 10 o'clock in a thunderstorm, and you're trying to beat the curfew.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's when you're having to pull the stops out with those unusual, extraordinary turnarounds. That's when the value of the handling agent comes in. And of course, the last 18 months, there's been nothing standard.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean the amount of flights which are operating off schedule, or they're airlines. Sorry, we're starting again in 48 hours. We're dropping in a freighter in 12 hours. This has just become every day now.
Yeah,
and I think it does kind of separate the men from the boys a bit about who could, having your ability to manage that.
Yeah, that agility now that's expected, and how an organisation pivots with short-term pressures and balancing staff and bringing staff back on again. To a degree, it's really been I think it's been a boost to the relationship and the collaboration in the industry in one way, but it's also highlighted, how important multi-skilled staff have to be and how their engagement affects the end product. Because if they understand and see the bigger picture as well, and on a couple of podcasts, we've been talking about various union actions and where people see it as them and us, and there's problems. This is now a time, I think, to look forward and do things totally different, but also allow individuals to enhance their value. And now, as somebody that's been responsible for such a large organisation, competence and training is a fine balance, especially at the moment with cash flow, return on investment, etc. So that's totally changed, hasn't it, through your 17, 18 years?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if I look back on what we predicted at the beginning of the crisis 18 months ago, I think we got a lot of things right, but a couple of things we got wrong. And one of the things which has surprised me, and I don't think this is not just my company, Dnata, I think it's the whole industry, is just how well our staff have reacted. Yeah. Just by giving our staff a bit more trust a bit more leeway, believing in them, they have repaid us in spades.
Yeah.
And that, I don't think that's just a ground handling thing. I think you're hearing that across different industries. That the even the working from home stuff, it's by giving our staff the freedom to do that, they've given us 130% effort.
Yeah.
So I think that's been a real learning for me, actually.
Yeah, no, it's amazing, isn't it? And also the focus nowadays on safety and security. I mean, that's seen some ups and downs now as well over your period.
Yes, yeah, it has, and I think the industry, I think all the big four handlers, I think, are taking it really seriously now. I mean, the investment that we've made in safety and security over the past few years has been phenomenal. And actually, I think the other thing is some of the technological developments which are coming through now are fantastic. Things like the auto check of dangerous goods, which reduces human error. And I think that's again one of the things which has come out of this crisis is the real move forward in technology.
Yeah,
we've all said how actually, as a ground handler, the industry hasn't moved forward really technologically in 20, 30 years. Then suddenly I think the last 18 months has been this huge impetus of innovation. And a lot of that is coming out at the grassroots level.
Yeah.
It's not coming out from the corporate offices. It's coming out from guys on the ground who are dealing with specific operational problems and specific customer needs, and they're coming up with ideas.
Yeah, and that's the way you'd like it anyhow. But I agree with you there. I think over the last 18 months, it's actually enhanced everybody's approach to digital transformation and automation and various initiatives by at least 10 years. So in one way, this crisis has done us the world of good. Now, as far as other pressures now, these new pressures, with various stresses and anxieties and losing a lot of experience. I mean, like yourself, there's lots of people now leaving the industry because either they can, which is fantastic, or they've decided, do something earlier than they were before, but to do something totally different. So even though it's a lot of old experience, it's still experience and it's going out. Now, what do you think of, if there was a sort of a bridge or a mechanism whereby the people that were leaving could step in, mentor and coach those that were then taken over in a totally different way? Because in some ways, many people who leave the industry, as soon as they say they're going, their organizations and their colleagues, it's almost like they've already gone. And then suddenly the day comes, they drop off and nobody gets in touch with them again. And that can be a bitter pill to swallow. So if they were able to pass on some of the areas that they love doing to some of the younger ones who are going to have so much more responsibility, to me, it seems a little bit of a shame to lose that, and also to lose the opportunity to change the sort of relationship whereby newer, younger employees or newer employees to those positions get the chance to tap into some of the experience. So it fast tracks their capability in their new positions and gives them more of a sense of, confidence and stability. And what do you think of that?
Absolutely agree, Chris. And and by the way, I'm not, despite the grey hair, I'm not planning to retire.
That was going to be another question that was coming shortly.
But I think in terms of, but you're absolutely right. And the traditional model that we have in the West, which is people work till they're 65, they work till 6 o'clock on a Friday night on their 65th birthday, and then suddenly stop and go fishing. It's just a really crazy idea, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not good for the individual.
Yeah.
To suddenly be like that and then suddenly stop, and it's also not good for the organisation because you suddenly lose that knowledge from one day to the next. And of course, the reality is people are not retiring at 65 now; they could be retiring at 55 or whatever. And I absolutely agree. I'd love it, and it's not just our industry, but I think generally for the economy, it would be great to have a way in which that as people you retain the experience somehow.
Yep.
And maybe, you know, when people get to a certain part of their career, they can get more flexibility about how they work. Why not?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
And then, you know, if people have that flexibility, they would probably want to carry on working longer.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I agree. Now,
Yeah.
putting that to one side, so now the big question: what are you going to do next? What would you like to do?
I've absolutely no idea. My mind right now is focused on August is about seeing my kids.
Yep.
While they're still on holiday, and then September, I'm just looking forward to having time with my wife. I'm just looking forward to having a walk in the hills and going to the pub, because that may sound normal to you, but when you've been apart from your family for 2 years, that's a treasure. So I know it sounds really silly. I'm deliberately not trying to think too much about the future.
Yeah.
And I find that a bit weird myself, because I'm one of those people that's always had my life planned. So it's a bit, you know, I'm surprising myself in a way, but I'm finding it quite liberating that I'm just gonna focus on my family and myself, and then decide what to do.
Well, what a lovely position to be in, Stuart. And you know, when you least expect it, doors open. And if you're brave enough to go through a few of them, there's a totally different horizon out there, and you never know where it's going to take you.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, we're talking about a couple of 21-year-olds, aren't we?
We are,
so,
mate. If only,
but it's absolutely true, you know. You know, and I think, you know, things are different to our parents' generation, aren't they?
Yeah.
You know, I'm 55 years old now, and I, you know, despite the hair, I feel young. I've got, you know, I'm quite excited about what opportunities could be ahead.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. It's brilliant. Now, sorry to go back into the past again, but when you were with Dnata, you were heading up, or you were involved with the One Dnata concept. So obviously you realised with the various acquisitions and the growth and everything, you needed to bring almost like a McDonald's, or a sort of like a franchise approach to customer. No matter where you are, this is what you get, because it's the Dnata one Dnata brand. Now, how difficult was that to implement?
Well, actually, going back, Chris, I mean, when we started the growth out of Dubai in 2004, and we really kind of we were investing in acquiring companies, but managing them autonomously.
Yeah.
So we changed the name above the door, but nothing really changed.
Yeah.
We bought the companies because we thought they were good companies.
Yeah.
But they were all opposite. And so we got to the point kind of where we had sort of 15 companies, which had 15 different roster systems, or accounting systems, or cargo systems. And then so we kind of realized that there was a point where you couldn't do that any longer. You had to start getting a McDonald'sization. And that's really what the last 5 years has been about. And, you know, with the what we call DGOM, which is the Dnata Ground Operations Manual, which is a standardized set of SOPs globally. Yeah. You know, with any, and of course there have to be exceptions, but they're recorded and approved exceptions. The turnaround tool for recording, the turnaround at the event, you know, common cargo system. So there's a whole program of standardization projects to move towards that. The reality is, though, the standardization doesn't just happen when you've got the manuals in place.
Exactly.
There's a lot more to it than that, and the culture. So there's a lot of work going on standardization of training approach, leadership development, etc. But it's a constant, and I think if all four of the big handlers were honest about it, I think, you know, one of the challenges that everyone has is getting that standardization in the same way as hotels do. Yep. You know, a Hilton hotel in Manila is different to a Hilton hotel in Miami. So I think it's, you know, we're working on that standardization, but also we don't want to lose the individuality and flair and entrepreneurism that we have in each individual business as well. I think it's really important to keep that and try and get the best of both worlds.
Yeah, it's nice in one way to have a global brand, but to have a unique DNA for the location that you're in.
Yeah,
the balance, is a difficult thing, but it's worth it.
Yeah, and one of the favourite slides that I have, and my team are fed up with me showing this slide.
Yeah, go on.
Is a slide about McDonald's.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, you think of McDonald's as the ultimate in standardization. And I always imagine this corporate office somewhere in the US coming up with these ideas which get rolled out globally. But the reality is, which I wasn't aware of until recently, was for example, the fish mac was actually created in a local store in the US where there was a very high Catholic population, and nobody wanted to buy their beef burgers on a Friday. So he said, I'm going to come up with a fish burger. And the same with the Big Mac, the Happy Meal. These were all created in individual stores in response to individual market needs.
Yeah.
And the beauty of, and we shouldn't be surprised that whether it's McDonald's or Dnata or any other company, we shouldn't be surprised that individuals are coming up with innovative solutions to local needs. I think the beauty, and this is where McDonald's has done really well, is they've taken those great local ideas and executed them globally.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, so it's great. When we talk about standardization, of course, that's is what we're aiming for, but we must not, standardization should not mean everything comes from the center.
Yes.
A lot of the good ideas come from, the 20,000 people around the network.
Yeah. The skill of the center is having the capability to encourage that and then to fish it, catch it, and then decide which ones are the ones that will make a difference for the whole organization. Yeah,
exactly. It's creating that sort of environment where people are prepared to come up with ideas.
Yeah, no, 100%. Now, another general question. When you finished, let's say the first couple of weeks of the walking, and you got a few blisters on the feet, and then you've got webbed hands and feet again, and then you've got a few headaches from the drinks in the pub. What do you think will be the things that you miss?
That's a good question, actually. I'm going to miss the camaraderie of the people I work with.
Yeah.
And the people in the industry and our customers as well. Some really good people in this industry, and I will miss that sort of regular interaction. And my team, I've got a fantastic team that I'm gonna miss. And I think you get a real sense of purpose in this industry. Think of where we are right now. Humanity has never been in a position like this where people are separated from their families. If you go back to the days when we lived in caves and were banging stones together, our family and friends were the basis of everything.
Yep.
And that's the word society. It's the Greek word. That's the meaning of the Greek word society. The fabric of the basis of our society is family and friends.
Yep.
And that's how it's always been. And then these aircraft came along over the last 70 years, and they allowed people to travel. But crucially, they kept that closeness to the fabric of their friends and family.
Yeah.
Because they could travel back. But you could go on a 3-week holiday to Thailand and be back for your brother's birthday. I mean, it's wonderful.
Yeah.
And now suddenly that's all stopped.
Yeah.
And we kind of didn't realize what we had.
Yeah, no, you're right.
And so what we're trying to talk, without getting too profound about it, and what we're saying here is we're so privileged because we're really, for the first time in the history of humanity, that people will be allowed to come back together again.
Yeah.
People, you must have spoken to so many people who haven't seen their brother in New Zealand, or haven't seen their sister or they haven't seen their grandson who was born in South Africa or something. And this reopening that we're doing, we're focusing on the operational challenges, but don't forget the purpose behind this. which is we're allowed someone will see their grandchild for the first time that they've never seen before.
Yeah, no, I know.
And remember
I know.
that when you're loading their bag.
Yeah, yeah. I remember your
Yeah.
story there. I remember your story on the first podcast about how important it is for people to appreciate what might be in that bag and what difference that bag makes to people's lives, whether it's presents, whether it's something really important. I always remember that. That was a nice way of showing the human touch there.
And that's what I'll miss, is that kind of, being part of aviation, you're part of a special industry, which I know it's a corny phrase, but brings the world together. Yeah,
yeah. No, you're right. You're right. Now, again, and not to be too deep or soppy about anything, but what do you think have been your biggest achievement? So if you were to look back now and say, do you know something, that was one of my proudest moments, what do you think it would be?
Well, apart from a very good goal in the top right-hand corner once, which shocked everyone on the field. No, I think it's. I remember sitting down in 2006 and saying we wanted to create an international ground handler.
Yeah.
And we had this sort of idea of what we wanted to do and how we wanted to position it in the market and the quality focus, etc. And it seemed like a really good idea. But there's all, when you have good ideas, you think, can we really deliver that?
Yeah.
And I think what we have achieved, so rather than focus on one individual thing, and I think, we're not perfect. There's been ups and downs on the road, but kind of look from that initial conversation in a room, which was, there's a real opportunity to start a global network here. And we've kind of done that. And I think that's, I feel, it sounds strange, but I actually feel comfortable leaving the business, knowing that we've got that far.
That's nice. Yeah. No, that's very good. Now, during on that journey and meeting that target and looking at the future, what characters, or is there anybody that stands out who mentored you, helped you, or gave you enough humor to smile on those dark, demanding days? Is there anybody that you remember, anybody that leaps out now?
Well, I think I've been really lucky to have some really good bosses along the way.
Yeah,
actually. Yeah, and even going back to my days in British Airways with a guy called Paul Alliker, and in Dnata with Gary Chapman, working with those guys was intense, challenging, and it was like working in a greenhouse. Yeah. You're always sweating, but boy, you grow quickly. And I think I've just been really lucky to have good bosses that have and I have to say now with Steve Allen, who's taken over Dnata, it's kind of I feel shame going in a way, because he's a great boss. But I think that those bosses that I've had have really allowed me to kind of achieve what I could have achieved.
No, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. Absolutely superb. And as far as memories, I mean, you've traveled all over the world with the company as well. So, any standouts there?
So many, really. It's there are so many, and you can't beat. I still remember. I know this sounds a silly one, but I remember being in the ramp office in Terminal 7 at JFK. And our CEO who was telling the guys that we were going to give them new uniforms and we were going to give them proper trousers. We'd just taken over the company. We're going to give them proper trousers and safety shoes for the first time.
My God.
And there's this wizened old guy who was kind of obviously, he'd been on the ramp for I don't know how many years. And he said, "You're giving us new pants?" Pants, American word for trousers. Yeah. And I thought, where's this going? And this guy basically stood up. I thought, oh no, what's happening next? And he stood up and just new pants. And then about 70 guys all got up and started clapping. And it made me realize, wow, they're really happy because they're getting new pants.
Yeah, but I suppose
it was more than that, of course. It was they felt valued. But so it's things like that. And I've met great people along the way, but I'll never forget that guy in the ramp room in Kennedy.
That's brilliant, isn't it? So that almost makes the hairs on the back of your neck stand up there when
it did, yeah.
And it shows sometimes the smallest of things can make the biggest impact to a group of people.
Oh, huge. Yeah, huge. Yeah. It's the same as new GSC, isn't it?
Yeah.
The impact that getting a new pushback has on morale is incredible.
Yeah. And it also, it's the other messages. It shows the company's invested in the future, invested in them, things are looking good. It has a good ripple effect.
Yeah, because you're constant, and I'm sure every company's like this. You're telling staff to do the best job.
Yeah.
You're telling them that their work is important. They've got to meet the customer expectation. But you're not prepared to give them proper equipment.
Yeah.
So your words mean nothing.
Yeah. No, it's so important to give the right message.
Yeah.
Now I know you're a busy man, and we really thank you for giving us a bit of time, on your final sprint to the finish line. But also Dnata has been an incredible host, and I've got to say, having seen you at the World Cup in New Zealand and the many times at the Sevens in Dubai, absolutely incredible. And I think that's also done your brands so well, especially the Sevens. Brilliant.
Yeah, and again, it's coming down to about valuing people, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah, you've got to look after your customers, and at the end of the day, we're all humans, aren't we? You've got to enjoy life.
Yep.
and enjoy rugby.
Yeah. Oh well, that goes without saying. Seriously, Stewart, I've had wonderful times with Dnata, both working with them, supporting them as customers, etc. And the growth has been incredible. And, you've really got a brand to be proud of, and some of the initiatives that you've taken, and especially in some parts of the world where you've taken those initiatives, fair play to you. And to you, my friend, you've been an absolute pillar of this industry. You're always professional. You've got a sound voice. You've got a mind full of wisdom. And I wish you the very, very best with you and the family. And somewhere, sometime, please God, love to have a pint with you. Not sure about the walk across the Highlands, but definitely a pint. And, well done for everything you've done in the industry, Stewart. It's something to be very, very proud of.
Oh, thanks, Chris. That means a lot to me. And it's been a pleasure working with you over the years in many different roles now.
Yeah.
Isn't it funny how our industry moves? The business relationships change, don't they?
Yeah, they
over
do,
years as people move roles. But actually, one thing I've really noticed, for the conversations I've been having in the last couple of months, is actually how many friends you have in the industry.
Yep.
You're a friend, Chris, and it's funny. You it's easy to say it, but I really mean it. That yes, we may move on to different things, but the friendships remain.
Yeah,
and, maybe that's the greatest legacy of the industry. So
it is, and like you said, out of rabbit holes, out of cracks, crevices, whatever, people pop up, and you realise how special they are. So, and that's something to be really cherished. So yeah. I know you got a call to make now in the next minute, so
that's all right.
Thank you so
okay.
much. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Good luck with everything.
Thanks, Chris.
I know we'll be having another podcast when you do something new, when one of those doors opens. Take care of yourself.
Okay.
All the best.
Yeah. Cheers. Thanks, Chris. Bye. Bye.